Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. And for today, we are going to talk about something I've been putting off for a video for like a year now. I only post on Sundays for this channel weekly, so a lot of the time some of my video ideas get put off due to that because stuff will come up throughout the week. And one of the topics was job search. Now, I learned a lot of new things involving job search last year. And so that's when I initially was going to post this video. So I'm just going to, nothing's really changed since then. So I'm going to still give you the better details of it. So this is, not only is it from my own research and my own getting out there and trying to look for another job, but it's also factual. I ended up, little backstory. I had closed my business, and that was around COVID time, and then since then I kind of struggled to find work, and now I basically work at home. So these are things that I had discovered last year while looking for work, and I just thought I would share some of this stuff. It is my own research, as well as it was kind of struggle, so I did ask for a little bit of help from recruiters, and so they kind of gave me some tips and tricks of what was going on, because, well, I had my business for a while, and then job hunting prior to that was still fairly easy. So one thing I will say is, if you haven't job hunted in a while, it's completely different. It's not the you walk into a workplace and you get hired on the spot. That's how I got most of my jobs in past years, right? And prior to the business, of course. But, the business was, it's kind of like YouTubing in a sense. People think it's easy to start a business. It's not. It's a lot of selling yourself, and it's a little easier than YouTube, because with YouTube, you're not really providing a service. It's easier if you say, hey, you need that done, pay me, I'll get that done type deal. With YouTube, you're literally selling yourself. Yeah, a lot tougher when they're getting nothing in return aside from content, I guess. Point is, it is tougher now, and you can do it. It'll still be tough, but there are some tricks that I thought I would share, because maybe there's some people out there looking for jobs and they're going about it the whole wrong way, because I was myself. Yeah, I thought it was a, hop on Indeed, hop on these other things, send out your resume, get a couple of interviews. It is not. You would think that that's the way it works, but that is not how it works. Well, the first thing I discovered is that there's the ATS system. So what is ATS? It is an automated tracking system. This is where you will first learn that even if you think your resume is up to par, it is not, and you need to work on it. The reason isn't because of you. Maybe your resume is totally good. It's because of the ATS system. There are certain things that exist on a resume that it will automatically decline. They won't even look at it. It's trashed. And one of the biggest things I had on my resume that it didn't like was my picture. I'm a very fancy girl, and I had a nice fancy resume, and because there was a picture, trashed. Because it was colored, do not have a colored resume. Yeah, make sure it's black and white. One of the biggest things I learned is go simple. So you need a very, very simple resume. And this was a lot for me, because I was like, well, it doesn't look professional then, I want mine to look like I'm invested in looking for work. And, you know, so it took me a bit to really like realize this was a thing, because I've always been about being more professional and all that. And then the other thing that I learned is how like the format your resume should be. Once upon a time, my old format worked, but because of the ATS system, there are certain things you need on your resume. So we're gonna do a little swap to another video I did earlier. And this is me just putting together some like generic resume just to show you guys. So it's all fake info, you know, but I wanted to show you guys just so you have an idea. Because, you know, this is coming straight from experts. I'm not telling you what I think it should be. I'm telling you what I was taught, you know, and this is what I was taught to get more interviews and all that. And yeah, without this, you would go years without getting a job. So possibly, you know, everyone has a form of luck, I guess, you know. But you can't just, you know, a lot of people out there are like, well, I can't get a job because I don't know anyone. You can't think like that. You gotta know this info to get past the ATS so you can get an interview. Okay, guys, so hopefully you can see this decently. So I am going to show you what I have learned through my job hunting. So the resume I really had to change up. I was always very fancy before, and I would put like over here, I'd have like a picture of me and with my address and all that. The number one thing that I learned is that you leave a picture off. It has to do with the new computer generated resumes aren't being looked at by an actual individual anymore. They're being looked at from a computer. So there's a system that you do to get through that system, you know, so that you can beat the computer more or less. So of course everything on here is going to be fake to, you know, protect my identity. But you start with your name, and then you can do your address. I learned to leave the full address out. So all you do is like your city, province, and you can do the postal code, but you don't have to. Basically just city and province. I think it's for security purposes. I never had a problem in the many years that I did use my full address. I always liked using the full address because if I was applying for a place that was super close by, there was like a bigger chance that maybe they hired me. But you know, the thing I have learned lately over the past year is that you just, yeah, so I'll use my real. Yeah, so you can just leave it at that, and then if you want, you can put the postal code. That one's up to you. And then the phone number, of course. So, you know, we'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mist is awesome at gmail.com. So you do your email address. So name, address, phone number, and email. Okay. So everything on the left of the line, you don't actually put on your resume. I'm just making it easy for you guys to know what's going on here. So that's how that starts. And then immediately, so we'll just put a little there. Okay, guys, so editor missed here. And there's one thing that I forgot to add in the live, video footage that you're seeing. So I'm just going to quickly add it here. You're not going to see it on the resume because that video has already been recorded. But before you start listing your jobs, right under the name, and keep in mind, things are looking a little bigger because I'm writing them on paper. This whole part is not going to take up this much space. A lot of the time I use it as one line. So for example, we're on a black screen right now for a reason. So I will show you what I mean. But like right here, my name is at the top. And then one line can be, the address, the email, the phone number, and then it fits a little better because, like I said, the ATS, not only will it only see kind of the top half, but it only takes like a few seconds and then it makes a decision. So there really isn't a whole lot of time that it's scanning your resume, right? So you want as much as you can fit up at the top. So to save some space, that's what I do. But the most important part of this little extra edit in here is that right under that and before the work experience, I like to put a little professional summary. And you can call it that. You can label it professional summary. And this is, you don't want to make this too long because once again, top part of your resume is the most important. So I would say no longer than 3 lines of your resume. Don't go past 3 lines, but make it important. This is your selling point. So if you are, if you got some exceptional skills, just talk about your qualifications and your skills. You can mention how many years you've been in the related field, that you're looking for full-time or part-time or whatnot. A lot of companies like to know what led you to their company, so you can make it a little more personal. And that's what that section is for. So I just thought I'd add that in. That's a pretty important little part that, I forgot to put on this paper. So I feel like that is, to me personally, I consider the professional summary to be more important than the jobs because like the jobs are there to show that you have worked before and you stayed for such and such time and blah, blah. But the professional summary is going to tell them what you can bring to the table, right? As well as your certificates, which are listed below. But once again, the computer needs this info. There's a part in the video where I talk about how you take qualifications that's being asked for in a job posting and you apply it. This is the section you would apply it. So this is the section that will get edited kind of frequently during your job search. So you make it, you get a good template going here with this professional summary, and then you can just change the skills depending on the jobs you're applying for. But yes, so I just wanted to add that in quickly. Continuing on. Immediately you put your professional experience. So let's say, I don't know, it's 2025, so let's say Google Google location, let's say Edmonton, although Google does not exist in Edmonton. And then let's say video editor. Now, only use 2025 if you were only there for a year. So for example, let's say 2025 only is Google, but let's say for 10 years prior, I worked for, I don't know, let's say Amazon. I always kind of wanted to work for Amazon. Which I could if I was willing to drive like an hour. That's the only thing that has really stopped me. I thought it would be a nice job. I'm a warehouse worker, so I try to get warehouse jobs for where I like to be. But that one's like out in Nisku. I can't even work it in Edmonton, so yeah, it would be a bit of a haul. But let's just, for example, let's say that I worked there from 2020 to 2025. So you want to make sure you don't have to have month and day, but have years. And we'll put Amazon, Nisku, and forklift. That's generally what I do. Forklift operator. And yeah, so the biggest thing is to not have gaps. So even if you were, say, unemployed for a while, just drag one of, like, there, you can fib a tiny bit, you know. Don't fib super hard, but you can fib a little bit just to hide some little gaps, because gaps will lead to no callbacks. So just make sure it all lines up and there's no gaps, because yes, you could explain your gap in the interview, but what if you never get the interview because there's a gap on your resume, right? So it's just best to just make sure no gaps exist. So have everything line up. And I like to have 3 jobs. You know, the one thing I have learned, and everything I learned came from professionals. I was struggling to find work, so I asked professionals to help me out a bit. And so this is all from recruiters. So I'm not a recruiter myself, but all the info I'm telling you in today's video is stuff I learned from professionals. And they also told me that you should never have a job that's 10 years or higher on your resume. So for example, we're in the year 2025. Our oldest job on this resume should not be any older than 2015. So for our third one, what's another place we're not using any real info here, so I'm just picking places. Like Google's kind of real. I am a video editor. I make content on YouTube. Like that's sort of real, but we just don't go into a Google office. The third one we could do, let's do Walmart. So let's go, we got 2020. So let's say Walmart was, I don't know, to make the example of the 10-year mark, let's just say 2015 to 2020, and we did Walmart, Edmonton, and I actually did work at a Walmart once, so this is going to be real, just not the dates, but I was a overnight forklift operator. That shift was like 12 to 8. Yeah, but it was kind of nice, you know. Okay, so there's our 3 jobs. Of course, in the middle here, you're going to need to have some bullet points of what you did there. And you want to keep them brief but important, because the thing to remember here is a computer is going over it and they're going to see about probably here. They're not going to see much past the bottom. So you want really like, let's take this page and put it in half. Like, let's fold it. So we'll just fold this page, and where you see that line, that is about, this top part is about how much the computer is going to see before they make a decision to move your resume further up or to decline it. And that's the bad part of job hunting now, right? People who haven't had to do it in a while don't realize how different it is right now, but that is it. Everything down here is not going to matter unless you're already moved forward. So you still want to make a resume really good, but this part needs to be the absolute best of the resume. So that's why you got like your name and everything up here. You got your most recent job. The best bullet points should be in the most recent job. Trucks. We'll keep it nice and simple. So you can put more than 3 if you want, but I like keeping it at 3. I like making it as easy for the computer as possible, because I've seen how tough it can be when the computer doesn't like it. Now you have your name, all that, your 3 jobs. Now let's just do a line here. The line is just so you can easily read it, since it is on a paper. At this point, this is where you could put your education. And this is where like my struggle really is, because my college degrees are in fields that I chose not to work in. So I hate the education part. But for me, I put, I'm a high school graduate, so I will put my high school, the name of your high school, the city, and province or state, depending on where you're at. And then year. I guess, I graduated a long fucking time ago, but I'll put the year, I guess. We can have a little realism. But for me, it was June 1997. Yes, I'm old. Okay. And a lot of the time, I leave that off. Yeah, because for me, it shows my age when I put that on, and there is a such thing as having trouble finding work when you're over 40. That definitely exists. And yeah, so a lot of the time I will just put the high school and the city and province, and the professionals tell me that's fine. They say, well, the interviewer can just ask you when you get the interview. The more important part is that they know what level what level your education is. So definitely in there, put that you're a graduate, and then my next one, I can actually name off the school. It was so long ago. But, my next one would have been college. I went to NAIT, which is a college in Edmonton, college, university. It's all the same shit to me. Same shit. But anyway, so NAIT, Edmonton, Alberta, and then dates And yeah, we'll just put dates here. And I have 2. So I would put 2 here because I went to college for 2 different degrees. We'll just put diploma. So diploma for the high school. And the first one was my business degree, which got used. I ran 2 businesses after getting that. So, and then the third one was I have a nursing degree as well. But I chose not to keep doing nursing. I didn't like the unpredictable hours, so yeah. And that's the question I always get asked in my interviews is why do I not do nursing anymore? Because it's like the easiest, like if you have the degree, it's the easiest job to get because they always need them, right? And then at the bottom, interests, you know, and just, you know, list off some interests. For me, I usually put like, I like writing, and I do actually put gaming, you know, because it's interests, and, you know, it's just to get to know you more or less. You can also put achievements if you have, you know, I find most achievements probably would go in here though. Education is a lot of your achievements because you got degrees there. But if you have like extra achievements, you can do that. I also like having a section for licenses. Yeah, because for my forklift, that is a license that I carry. And yeah. Also for video editor, people who hire for video editor want to see that you have completed, you know, courses on, say, you know, Adobe, or that you can type such and such per minute, you know, stuff like that. So I'm not going to really fill this out, but that's where, you know, and then there'd be one more line. So let's just do it like that. Yeah, this is being written, so it's taken a lot of space, but this would fill 1 page easily. And then your very last area is your references. And I always put available upon request, because it's not their business until you hire me. That's the way I see it. So that is Mystical Darkness. We got the address. The email address don't exist. Like, everything's fake here. Kind of like that phone number. And then, you know, professional experience. That's how you do that. Education. You know, obviously you wouldn't have, like I said, everything past this line, like here, this is just for you to kind of have an idea for the video purposes. You wouldn't put name, right? It would just look like this. But, although you do want the dates. So the dates, you definitely put that in. And then, you know, this part, the diploma, you could just put the name of your high school, you know, the location, the date, and then after put that it's the diploma. Same with the business degree, it can go after. After or first, one of the two. And then the interests, achievements, licenses, and then references available on request. Okay, so that is that. I just thought I'd share that today because that was one of the biggest things I learned as far as the job hunt goes, because it is tough out there. And how you do up your resume is going to help you because, you can't get a job if you can't get an interview, right? And yeah, so that will help. Don't use a picture, because basically the computer system that your resume goes through, it's an auto reject when it sees a picture, because it can't read pictures. It can only read letters. That's why I went from I was always pretty professional with my resume, and don't get me wrong, I got interviews with that resume, and I even got jobs because I've used that style of resume for so many years. But in 2025, there's a computer system that reads it, right? That resume is only good if it's in someone's hands. The computer system can only read letters. So now my new updated resume is basic like this. I went back to a very basic resume. So no picture. Don't put your full address, just your city and province or state, and postal code is optional. But do not put 123 Azeroth Avenue or something, right? And then email, of course, phone number and email, super important. That's how they're gonna contact you, right? And yeah, and this, when I do it up on the computer, I like to have the professional experience, like all the categories, I throw them in bold, and then I have regular text for these. I'll usually bold the business name, so just to make it stand out a little more. And yeah, but I've stopped, my old resume not only had the picture, but it was colorful. I had purple text on black, right? So yeah, now it's just basic black text, and yeah. So I hope that helped some people with their resume. That is the biggest thing I learned. Another thing that I didn't mention in that clip, but I'm just going to mention it right now, is that I have multiple different ones, because I'm a video editor. So while I am considering hiring a video editor myself, I have been video editing for other people for a while now, and that has been my job. But I do also, if it's not that, it's warehouse typically, right? So those are my two fields. And if you have more fields, like say you're looking for video editing, warehouse, cooking jobs, and I don't know, computers or sales or something, you want 4 resumes. Yeah, you want one resume that tailors to that particular. That's another big thing I learned. So I have a couple of resumes that get sent out depending on what I'm applying for, right? So yeah, and with this, I have gotten more interviews than I was before with my other resume. Now, I'm not saying my other resume didn't work. It got me my last job, and yeah, so it works. It's just, it's a percentage thing. I lucked out. I got that job with it, but I went a long time without getting any callbacks, and that is because that resume, the thing is, it worked because it landed in someone's hands, right? But when you're applying online, there's a high chance that it goes through the ATS system, and then if that system approves it, then it goes into the pile for actual eyes to go on it. And yeah, so that's the biggest struggle with job hunting right now, is that you're working against a computer. You have to beat the ATS system to even make it to the next step. And so that's why I decided today I would just show you how I do up my resume. And you, of course, will, add your things to it. But that is the format. The biggest takeaway from the resume that you saw me just kind of like wing. Again, it's not real. But the biggest takeaway from that is the order. So you put whatever you need to put on your resume, but keep that order, because the ATS system doesn't care about your bottom half of your resume. So you want the least important shit. Like, I get that everything's important on a resume, but you want the least important stuff at the bottom. That's why you have like your references and your schooling and all that at the bottom. The biggest thing you want at the top is kind of like your qualifications and stuff. Another trick to use is when, like, say you go on Indeed and say it's, we'll use video editor. Looking for a video editor, must be, exceptional in cutting footage and know Adobe and all that. So based off of that little bit of stuff right there, qualifications, you have Adobe skills in there, right? And the ATS will see, okay, Adobe, that person's looking for Adobe, let's move it on, right? And it's all about where it's situated on the resume. You want it near the top. And yeah. As far as address, I always put my address on because I always liked places to know that I'm close. So if it's like a day off and you guys need a replacement, I'm close, and sometimes that's a selling point to hire you, right? So I always liked putting my address on the resume, but I was told that, it's left off, like full address anyway. You put your city and your province. It's left off. I think it's because of scammers. So those are my biggest things I just wanted to discuss today. I know that I've seen a few, people online, and I feel so kind of privileged to have like this info that I've gotten, because I see people doing it the whole wrong way online. So I just wanted to kind of like open their eyes up a bit to the fact that, it's not totally you, but it's kind of you. It's the way you're doing up your resume. You change the resume and you will start getting so many more callbacks. Also, another thing, and I hate doing this, but it works. And yeah, but I hated doing this at the start. And it's cold calling. Cold calling is when you apply for a job and then you let a day or two pass by, let it at least maybe get into their hands, and then you call them up and you inquire and you're like, are you still hiring, or better yet, there are two different ways of cold calling. There is that which most people, let's be honest, most people either don't do it, they'll lie and say they did it, or maybe they do it, but just that one way. The second way to do cold calling is to just call random businesses you're interested in and ask them if they're hiring. The biggest thing I learned with the recruiters was that Indeed and all these job sites, they are like 40% of the jobs out there. 60% of the places hiring are not putting ads out because they're not quite there yet, but they're going to hire in like a week, or so you get your foot in the door ahead of time, right? And and there's also, there's lots of people that say they don't have connections. They don't need to be friends. You just mention to people. Even YouTubers, they're out there like talking about how they're looking for work. You're connecting. You're making connections right there. You can stop saying that you don't know people, right? Because you are making connections, whether you think it or not, just by talking about it. And that's another big thing that the recruiters would mention to me is just, I've had a lot of struggle moments through my YouTube, and no one's ever known about any of them because I'm what's the word? We all know what the word is, right? I think I can always do everything on my own. And for the most part, I can. For the most part, I can. And so too much pride. Yeah, that's the word. So I have way too much pride, and I don't tell people shit. And that's a flaw in job hunting as well, is you want to get out there, let people know you're looking, more so locally. I did mention the YouTube thing, and some connections can come online if you're looking for online type work, right? You could get jobs like that, but you really want to be doing it locally. Tell your friends, tell people you just meet randomly, tell the guy at the grocery store, shit like that. Just bring it up in convo, because that's where you get some of your jobs too, right? So there's, I think the biggest takeaway to take from this video is that Indeed and any job site, basically, they're like, yes, send your resume to them, but they're there as a lot of people think they're the main thing, right? They are actually the worst case scenario. Maybe you land a job through them. Your best case scenario is actually calling up businesses. And once again, I hated that at the start. I hate phoning people, and I hate telemarketers. So I never want to be that person that feels like they're harassing a business. And so I understand if, some of you watching this video are like, no, I'm never doing that. Because I was that person. And I even would be like, oh, well, I made a couple of calls, like, little did I tell them that it went to voicemail every time, right? Yeah. But it took me a bit. So that might be just something you work at, get comfortable with, and then you'll be doing it, easily later. But yeah, my advice on that one, because once again, I hated that. It took me months to even really start doing that, because I hate phones, and yeah, I'm just not a phone person. I don't like harassing people. You guys know that. I don't even I advertise next to nothing to you guys. I never tell you to follow the channel. I never tell you to become a member on my main channel. I never ask for donations. I think you're fully aware that I don't like harassing people, right? And if you want to do that, you do that on your own. But with the job search, you kind of got to just, however long it takes you, then that's how long it takes you, right? And my only advice would be, don't call it noon. I wouldn't call right in the morning. So figure out their hours. If they are, say the place opens at 8 a.m. and they close at 6 p.m., I would not call it 8 a.m. I would not call it noon. I think the better time to actually call, as much as I want to be the person that says get out there early, morning is better, I say do it at like 2. Yeah. I would do either 2 p.m. or like 11 a.m. Right before lunch, or of course it depends on the type of business. Again, if it's a cooking job you're after, definitely not noon and not breakfast and not evening. Like you know how it'll be. They'll have their breakfast rush, their lunch rush, and then their dinner rush. So you want to like call kind of in between those. Let's take McDonald's for example, right? I think their breakfast is 24/7 now. So, but let's just use a back in the day reference. That I'm sure there's some places that open the way they used to, where the breakfast will start at 9, end around 11, and then I think it's a little tougher with cooking stuff, but just work around it. Once again, I think 2 p.m. still works really good. I think 2 p.m. is a good like time frame for almost any type of job, because it's kind of right dab in the middle of lunch is over. Even if you are a person that takes a late lunch at work, you take it at then maybe 1, right? Maybe you got caught up and you had to take it later, you'd still be done at 2. And I just think 2 to 3 is a good time frame. So there's that, and that is another huge thing I learned. So little breakdown here, I'll put it on screen. The important, I think it's 3 important takeaways. So biggest things to do: get your resume to like the ATS, right? Make sure ATS approves that resume. How do you do that? Put your qualifications on the top. Also, once again, I mentioned it earlier, but briefly, so maybe it kind of got missed the message, but you look at the job posting and you use words from that job posting in your resume. So this is where some work comes into play. There is lazy job appliers and not lazy job appliers. You need to not be lazy. With the ATS system being there, you have to care about every job you're after, more or less. You need to tailor the resume for those words that's in the job posting so it passes the ATS. And so you I don't know, say you're fed up, you just want work, you're applying for everything. Do the fast apply for the shit that you don't care as much about, but for most of your jobs, you want to tailor it to that job. The second takeaway would be the cold calling. Like I said, more people get work through cold calling than they do actually applying on Indeed and Glassdoor and all those other sites. I'm Canadian telling you this, but this applies to the States too. I have friends out in the States that have been struggling with job hunting as well. I told them what I learned, and they were, getting more interviews and stuff. So it does work for both of our countries, and possibly more, but I can confirm for us. And the thing is, it's eventually going to be a worldwide situation. AI is taken over. It has been for a while. And then the third would be, talking to people, letting people know that you're either unemployed, or maybe you work part-time and you're looking for another job on the side, or maybe you work full-time and looking for another job. It's tough out there. Not everyone is looking for one job. So those are the biggest takeaways. Happy job hunting to those looking, and to those not looking, yay. Yeah. I have a couple of friends. Like, I have one friend who has been at the same place for 40 years. And it's like, wow, I feel the same way when people are like married for 40 years. It's like, how'd you not get bored? Like, maybe it's a little better with like marriage, but with work. So if that is you, grats. My best friend, I think he's coming up on 10 years at his job. He is older and he's close to retirement. So I think that's a big reason. Sometimes I feel like he might have looked for something better, if it wasn't that he's close on retirement. So he doesn't want to mess that up. There are some pretty good benefits he gets through his company, and he's only 8 years away, I believe, now from retirement. The thing is, you gotta stay with a company for a decently long time to get the perks properly, like, to get the really good perks. It's just all a matter of finding that one place where it's the people, right? I think it's more about the people than it is the actual job. I think any job is probably pretty tolerable if the people are tolerable, or like, I think you have to be able to laugh with your employees, because if everyone's happy, then, they say happy wife, happy life. Well, I do believe that falls into the workplace too. There won't be as much high turnover, people will stay longer, and yeah. And one thing I would like to say is a lot of people will say, well, make sure you're not replaceable, do that one thing that makes you not replaceable. That is a very good piece of advice, but I'm going to top that one up with that being tougher said than done, because with YouTube, a lot of people learn YouTube skills. It's not that they want to be a YouTuber. It's that if they want to be, say, a mechanic, they go watch a YouTube video to learn how to be a mechanic, and then maybe they go to school or something. But the thing is, nothing is really irreplaceable. Like, you are always at risk because it takes next to nothing for someone to learn that skill, So I think it goes much further than that. Yes, focus that. Do that first. Do your best to not be replaceable. But also, don't be stupid either. Know that anyone at any time, no matter what you're fucking doing, can be replaced. People can learn new skills and they can take over your job if they want. The biggest thing for, I always hear people say, well, pick the job that no one else can do. No, anyone can do any job. You be the person that they can't replace. Don't let people walk over you, but show people you're serious, you do a good job at work. That's the difference, right? Is someone could replace you, but are they gonna, if someone calls in sick, are they gonna come in and fill that person's shoes? Or, it's other things. It's not the fucking job. You know, like that's the biggest thing I'm gonna say in this video, is that, like, yeah, there are jobs that have less people that can do them, but people can learn anything now, right? You gotta be the good employee. That's the irreplaceable. You be the good employee, and you do your job, and you don't putz around. You know, you're making the company money. And that's about it. That's about it. I think I'm gonna end here. Dragging the video out a little longer. I try to keep them semi-short, no longer than 30. I think this one's definitely over 30, especially with the resume little clip in there. But nonetheless, you know, for those that just kind of listen to me blab about stuff, I hope you enjoyed. And for those that are job hunting, I hope this info helps you find your next job. Have a great one, guys. Bye.